Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Amy controls Rest in Peace and Oracle of Dust. She wants to activate Oracle of Dust's ability and put Nick's grizzly bears from exile into his graveyard. What happens? Alright, so with this question, we've got a really interesting situation that highlights the interaction between Rest in Peace and these processor cards. Obviously, without Rest in Peace, there would be no problem. Amy could just take the grizzly bears and put it into Nick's graveyard. But with Rest in Peace in play, she isn't able to put any cards into Nick's graveyard because, well, they're going to be going into the exile zone instead. Fortunately for Amy, this rule here says that even though some replacement effect might be modifying what physical actions take place when she pays this cost, the cost is still considered paid, even if what ends up happening in the game doesn't match exactly what the card says the cost should be. Accordingly, it is possible for Amy to activate her Oracle of Dust this way, even with the Rest in Peace out. And there will be absolutely no repercussions for her as far as whether the ability is possible to activate or whether it will resolve as normal. So that's going to be working out perfectly good for her. She can even activate this ability on a future turn and process the exact same card to activate the ability again. Well, okay, it won't actually be the exact same card. According to this rule here, if you have a card that's exiled and a replacement effect replaces it going into another zone with it getting exiled again, that card will instead be exiled and become a new object in the exile zone, with no connection to its previous self. So as far as the game rules are concerned, it's actually not the same exact card. It's a completely new, different one that just so happens to have just been exiled. Pretty interesting, right? And it's got some significant consequences. For example, let's say Amy had that grizzly bears exiled due to her Oblivion Ring. If Oblivion Ring had exiled a card, then when the Oblivion Ring leaves the battlefield, that card will be returned to the battlefield. However, if the card gets processed and then exiled again, even though the physical card probably didn't move a single bit, as far as the game rules are concerned, when the processing happened, it turned into a brand new object. It didn't leave the exile zone and come back, but it's considered to be different as far as the game rules are concerned. So, if Amy Oblivion Rings a Grizzly Bears and then processes that card with an Rest in Peace out, then the Grizzly Bears is considered to be a new object with no connection to its previous self, and therefore not the same Grizzly Bears that the Oblivion Ring exiled. Therefore, the Grizzly Bears would stay exiled even if the Oblivion Ring was destroyed later. The same thing would be true if Banishing Light or some other card with the updated template were involved. Now, let's talk a little bit about how this would work with, say, Ulamog's Despoiler. With that, you have to get two cards, and even though the Grizzly Bears isn't physically changing zones, it still doesn't count as two cards. You have to process both of them at the same time as part of the same game action, which means it's not possible to use the Despoiler of Ulamog with one Grizzly Bear. You would need two physical cards to be able to process. One last thing that I wanted to talk about is how this interaction works with cards that are exiled face down. Let's say that Nick has a bunch of face down cards that he's exiled with Bomat Courier. Can Amy use the Oracle of Dust to process some of them with Rest in Peace out? The answer is yes, she can. She doesn't know the identity of any of the cards, but she can still point at one of the cards that's exiled face down and say, I want to get that one. Then what happens is actually kind of interesting. With the Rest in Peace, of course, it won't be possible to put that card into Nick's graveyard. It will instead be exiled again as a new object. Now, what that means is that, well, first of all, it's no longer considered to have been exiled with Bomat Courier anymore. So if he uses the Bomat Courier ability, he will not get that specific card back. The other interesting thing is that because it's exiled using the Rest in Peace and not due to the Bomat Courier ability, it'll be exiled face up because that's the default when something gets exiled and it doesn't say whether it should be exiled face up or face down. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.